Audience responsibility. It's a topic that has come up many times since I've started as a YouTuber, especially as political tensions around the world have increased and the culture war has become a more pressing issue for everyone. The conversation around it has even been reflected in the terminology we use. 5 years ago, you were a YouTuber or a streamer. Now, if you have any audience online, you're an influencer, which sounds like the name you'd give an Instagram thought if she was from like some teen dystopian novel like The Hunger Games or Divergent. Diverge my balls. Well, with all of the conversation around Idubbbz, the issue has been even more exasperated.
Clear that I am absolutely responsible for my audience. If you want to, look out for people who are red flags, it's definitely people who had my mentality that say, I'm not responsible for what my audience does.
I completely agree. And there are so many fucking content creators out there that just leave that at the door. They like turn on, they go in their computer and they do their content and do this. And the second they're offline, they just like let the snowball go down the hill. You are absolutely responsible for your audience and what they're saying and doing and what's happening in different discords and stuff. You have to. No one else can be. You are the mother that birthed that audience, right? They are a reflection of you. It makes me sick to think of like what you guys might say and do in other channels. That's why I'm like very strict here, right?
Now, I found this to be very silly on its face for a few reasons. Firstly, I think there's actually nothing wrong with making content and then screwing off. I think that's actually the healthiest thing to do for the creator in question, as well as the fans, instead of being obsessed with every reaction someone could have to your content or being obsessed with what your fans are saying. At the end of the day, the audience's relationship with you is a parasocial one. What you say or do in a stream is your only interaction with them. How they perceive that message, understand it, or misunderstand it is up to them. If you want to try and meet every single audience member and keep tabs on them to make sure they're not getting confused with whatever you're saying, good luck. But I have things to do. I have, a life. I'm good. Secondly, I take issue with the idea that this dude is horrified by what people could be doing on Discord. To be honest, you should probably get comfortable with that right now, to be honest, because you'll never be able to stop all of the foul, smelly, depraved cancer that happens on Discord. And also, he says, who's going to put a stop to it? Who else? Well, how are you going to put a stop to anything? Like, are you going to tweet about people? Be like, hey, you shouldn't tweet that. Like, you're not the police. You're just some goofball on Twitch. You can't make anyone stop anything. Are you going to report them to the police for espousing a particular political opinion that you don't like because coincidentally they're a fan of your stupid Twitch stream? Like, good luck, buddy. Nothing's going to happen. The caption of this video calls this dude egotistical, and there is a bit of narcissism going on here. The idea that streamers are thought leaders, cult supervisors who must direct their people to the promised land is pretty silly. And some streamers do certainly act that way. And there are certain things you can do to mitigate if the audience sees you that way or not. Like Aiden Ross, you could argue, is more influential on his audience because he's constantly, explicitly encouraging them to do stuff. Just the other day, he said someone needs to be kicked out of school for something they said on his stream. So he's clearly, in the realm of like, there's some responsibility that does fall on him. But that responsibility is a choice. I agree more with this reply, who likens Twitch streamers to street performers. You're not that important, to be honest. Now, Willie Mac Show explained his take on the situation. He said, you're not responsible for your audience unless you directly tell them to do something. They are their own people. If you have 100,000 viewers, statistically speaking, one of them is going to be unhinged. Willie points out that for every group of people, every large mass, there's always going to be one psychopath who does something crazy. They may even do it in the name of a creator that they like. Does that make the person in question to blame? Does that make the creator who they watch to blame? No, of course not. It makes the actual perpetrator of that act to blame, because we all have our own personal responsibility. We have our own personal agency. We're all people with our own thoughts, brains, who make our own choices. And unless you think that everyone is like disabled apart from you, you have to take into account the fact that you aren't like capable of controlling all of them, of making them do this or making them do that. And frankly, I don't think you owe people fulfilling that responsibility. I think that's very ridiculous. Do you think PewDiePie is responsible for the Christchurch shooter? I would say no. And I hope that most people would agree with that. If 99 people like sarcastic humor and the 100th person doesn't get it, is that my fault? No, it's theirs for being an idiot. We cannot stupid-proof the world, otherwise we won't be able to do anything. With that being said, maybe there's some more nuance than Willie wants to admit. After all, there must be cases where a creator influences their audience to do something that, while not direct, their actions implicitly encourage the audience to engage in. Like when Idubbbz says people came up to him in Walmart and said racial slurs.
I did not like the interactions that I had with fans. There were quite a few human beings that I interacted with that just sucked because I attracted a lot of people who sucked. Some people were very much like
antisocial, weird basement dwellers. You know, the one time a month that they come out of their cave and they run into me, their favorite YouTuber.
And what would they say? What would they do?
Things that I am certainly not going to repeat. I'm talking bad words.
Words that we only say by describing the first letter?
Yeah, exactly. Man, what a powerful way of putting it.
So the question then becomes, who is responsible for that interaction? Is it Idubbbz for normalizing the use of slurs, or is it the viewer for using that as mental justification to act like a dumb in public? It depends on the person. Clearly, Idubbbz feels some deep guilt for teenagers who said slurs because of him. I think that's pretty silly, but there's no way I can take that away from him. It's his cross to bear, even if that cross really only exists as a manifestation of his insecurity while making videos in his mind and is not real. Ultimately, this responsibility is kind of ethereal. If you want to believe that people are babies and need to be told what to think and do every second of every moment, then you can treat your audience that way. You are totally welcome to. I can't stop you. If you don't think that, like me, and think that people have some personal responsibility to themselves and are not mind-controlled robots, then you're not Ludwig, who had a very different take. The argument that statistically 1 out of 100,000 people will be unhinged, so you bear no responsibility for the other 99,000 is incredibly weak. And in a way, he's right. There's no doubt that sharing some information with your audience could shape how they feel. Encouraging certain behavior, you know, implicitly through your actions could influence them to do that. You can't deny that, right? If they find you relatable and you have some particular opinion, they may be more inclined to agree with that take because of who you are, because of your background being similar to them, etc. Right? But that responsibility is not given. It's chosen. I'm perfectly comfortable saying that I feel no guilt over whether my audience agrees with me or not, over whether or not they act like out, you know, things in my name, or not, that I agree or disagree with. I don't feel responsibility for that. I don't feel guilt for that. You know, it's no weight on my shoulders. I go to bed. I sleep like a baby, okay? I don't care. I certainly hope that they don't do anything stupid in my name. That's why I actively discourage harassment by putting harassment disclaimers in every video. In the videos themselves, verbally, sometimes I'll be like, hey guys, don't go after these people, don't go after this person, don't give them shit. I don't want to do that. I just make entertainment. End of the day, I make entertainment. I'm not a part of a social movement. I'm not a part of some kind of like activism or anything. I make entertaining videos. All I want people to do is come to my videos, watch them, and leave. I don't want them to tweet at people. I don't want them to get angry. I want them to enjoy the video, think it's entertaining, and then go away from me. That's it. But at the same time, I don't feel that I'm obligated to do that. In fact, I don't think any creator should feel obligated to do that. You don't owe your audience anything. Ludwig had a decent take about parasocial relationships a few years ago.
And I think at the end of the day, most people kind of get it, you know? Like most people just kind of watch it. Maybe they pull some personality traits, or maybe they just come for a laugh and then they leave. And that's it. But some people, you know, this is for you. Make sure at the end of the day that you're just watching to watch, you know, for fun, for a laugh, to escape reality for a moment, but then you go right back into it, all right? And you need to work on your life. I get this all the time on Twitch, and sometimes even on YouTube or Twitter. Ludwig, you saved my life. No, I didn't save your life. What do you mean I saved your life? I've been playing Pokemon and Among Us in Minecraft. Where in that journey did I save your life? Did I pick up a scalpel and take out a cancerous lump? No. All I did was play games, and you used me as a distraction to maybe get through a bad period or whatever it was. But you did it. You used me. You could have used anything. You could have used Taylor Swift's most recent album. You could have just used Jay Schlatt himself if you wanted. It could have been anything that you used. You just happened to have used me, and I promise, if you didn't, you also would have been fine. All right? So stop giving me the credit that you deserve for doing all the work. I don't know you. How can I save you? Come on, think about it. Think about it. Anyway, look. I just think it's worth saying, and I've never talked about this really on YouTube, but parasocial relationships can be a bit dangerous, which is why it's worth at least being cognizant that they exist in the first place. And maybe just reevaluating your interests in things, you know, and your real life relationships and all those good things that make your life better. Instead of working on relationships with people that you're never really going to hang out with and that can't care about you. Not just don't, literally cannot.
Which is why I find his current opinion a bit curious. It seems to conflict.
I don't give a about your opinion. Go away.
I'm not your friend. I will never, ever hang out with you. And I don't care about you because, dude, I don't know you. I can't. How old is that video? How old is I'm Not Your Friend? That video is dead ass 2 years old. No, it's a year and a half old. It's a year and a half. I'm flipping the script. All right. Rest of 2022. I love you guys. I love you. We did this. You guys, hey, little buddies. I'm your friends, guys. Come on, little buddies. Let's just have a good time this year. Let's just, me and you guys, just hang out. Come on, little buddies. We'll have a great year.
At the end of the day, you'll always have a subset of any audience that wants you to be some kind of social movement leader who's fostering that parasocial bond. But you don't owe those individuals anything.
The fans. No sarcasm, no joking. The fans. Thank you.
In the same way that I don't think you inherently have to police your chat, your community at all times to make sure they aren't saying or doing things you disagree with. If you do partake in that, you ironically create a stronger parasocial relationship, which you claim to not want to, create by weeding out anyone who disagrees with you or has hot takes on a subject and only having an audience of people who reflect how you feel. They reflect what you want to do and where you want to go with your life and your background. People from other backgrounds may have a totally different life experience and they may express a negative opinion about Chris for Mr. Beast. They may be transphobic even. You can ban those people for whatever reason you want. I don't care. But undoubtedly, there will be more of an echo chamber of less dissenting opinion, and that will only strengthen the parasocial bond because you'll only have people who agree with your opinion on trans issues. So, that only strengthens that parasocial relationship, right? And I don't think you can deny that. Now, Ledwig ended up talking about this on stream as well, so let's see what he had to say.
It was someone saying least egotistical content creator, and it was in response to Sans saying this.
Absolutely responsible for your audience and what they're saying and doing and what's happening in different discords and stuff. You have to. No one else can be. You are the mother that birthed that audience, right? They are a reflection of you. It makes me sick to think of what you guys might say and do in other channels. That's why I'm very strict here, right?
And then I think the take from this person, homosexual, was least egotistical creator because it's very egotistical to think that you have that much of a command over another human. So I think that's where the ego comes in. You are one of many creators that people consume. You don't have that much of an impact. What I view it as is inaction births action. So this person's take was you are not responsible for your audience unless you tell them to do something. So hey, let's go hate raid Pokey, like that Gideon clip from back in the day. But I think if we're talking about Chris Mr. Beast and a bunch of people in my chat start saying, Chris, you yuck Dan's game, or saying maybe more outwardly transphobic shit, and I do nothing about it, then it's kind of like a safe space for that type of rhetoric. And that can, but I fundamentally agree with Stans that the community you form based off the actions you take will make it a more positive place than negative. And I think people are too willing to say, I am not responsible, and having a lot of inaction in not forming a better community. But I also don't care to argue it. I stay in my own lane. I try to make sure I have a nice place, but I cannot police the internet, nor do I care to. But I did think this phrase here, if you have 100,000 viewers, statistically speaking, one of them is going to be unhinged, is just a pointless thought. I don't know what the implication of this sentence is. I don't know why it was included. But to me, it felt like, okay, if I have 100,000 viewers, statistically speaking, one is going to be unhinged. So I don't have to worry if any are unhinged is just kind of, I don't even know how that is an argument in the first place. I don't know what the idea of it is. So I just chimed in and I said the argument that statistically 1 out of 100,000 people will be unhinged, so you bear no responsibility on the other 99,999 is weak, which I stand by. I think it's a very weak argument. I don't understand why that would say that. I don't understand the bearing on that sentence. And then there was a bunch of replies to that, including Ninja, who said you aren't responsible for them, but you have responsibility to be a good role model and leader, especially when you're talking about sensitive topics. Which I don't care to argue any further. I just thought this was dumb. I thought it was dumb. It was on my timeline, and I'm a reply guy on Twitter, so I replied and I said I don't get this. I think this is a weak argument. I think there's a lot of decent arguments to why you bear no responsibility. I think that's not one of them. I think it's a bad argument.
Then Willie came back after seeing this to reply on Twitter by saying the bearing of that sentence is that there's people that hold creators responsible for a minority of their audience doing bad things, like Nick Hikato blaming Charlie for harassment, even though Charlie said not to harass, or PewDiePie for the Christchurch shooting, or Idubbbz saying his own fans were saying N-word, F-slur out in public. None of these people advocated for doing those things, but fringe minority freaks did them, and then masses of people try to hold the creator accountable. That's unreasonable. That's the point. I'm someone who does not care to police my community or always express my intentions because, to be honest with you, if you're constantly explaining yourself and you're also trying to be funny or entertaining, you come across as gay. And I don't mean gay in the homosexual way.
Why are you gay?
I mean gay as in you're just lame. It takes the punch out of the joke. It takes the punch out of the entertainment. It takes the fun out of it because you're constantly trying to explain everything like you're a fucking teacher. That being said, I don't not ban anything. I ban everything that would potentially break YouTube's terms of service and chat. Same applies with my Discord because I want to continue using these platforms. I don't want to cause issues for them. I don't want there to be some kind of animosity between me and YouTube. I want to continue using it. I want to continue using Discord. And as a result, I'm willing to do basically whatever they want, I also have a policy in my Discord of banning any sexual content at all because that just opens up a whole rabbit hole, and I don't want to be chasing around files on Discord like Scooby-Doo trying to dox them anytime one of them acts up. Meanwhile, dealing with the fact that person was probably openly being a horny weirdo on my server itself. You know, oh, this aged like milk, could have seen that coming. So I made an executive decision to ban all of that. But to be clear, that's not because I feel responsible for what happens in my Discord server. It has 4,000 people in it, most of which I do not know, have never talked to, and will never talk to. Statistically, one of the people on my Discord server has probably murdered someone or something. I have no fucking idea who they are. The reason I ban any sexual content is because if I hear about any kind of criminal activity like child predation, I feel obligated to report that to the authorities, as anyone should. And as a result, I've taken all steps to mitigate the possibility of any kind of grooming happening as a result of people meeting in my Discord server. And one of the obvious steps to mitigate that would be to remove any sexual contact. So I banned all NSFW conversations, all NSFW art, etc. None of that Coomer stuff is allowed whatsoever because, you know, I know people love to have their freaking ERP furry sessions. I just find that gross. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see it. And, you know, having that possibility through allowing sexual stuff in the server will make it more likely that someone who's trying to groom kids could potentially go there and try to meet someone or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't like that. That's not good. So none of it's allowed whatsoever. And I'm honestly not sure anything good ever comes from those kinds of channels and chats and servers. Now, this brings us to Zoomers, okay? People around my age from like 18 to 23-ish, I'm 20 for context, talking about how YouTubers made them racist. I'll be the first to admit Idubbbz is one of the main reasons I fell into the alt-right pipeline and ended up getting suspended from school for how out of pocket and bigoted I was. Anyone who thinks Idubbbz did not have a serious negative effect on the youth is wrong. This guy would go on to discuss how he called minorities in school slurs because of Idubbbz and Filthy Frank. Well, Dino Nuggets, I'm very sorry that your parents did not love you enough to tell you that calling kids racial slurs at school is a bad idea, but believe it or not, there were millions of other kids and people who watched that content and didn't do that, you know? Idubbbz videos existing did not cause an epidemic of racism and you know, the reintroduction of the Ku Klux Klan into the American political system, that didn't happen. Your personal lack of media literacy and understanding and self-awareness in high school is not the responsibility of the content creators you watched. It's the people around you. And I feel like there's this big movement in the last few years in general to remove any personal responsibility from people's actions, especially on the internet. You see this a lot, and this is just an extension of that. Well, yes, I used to be racist, but it's because I watched this YouTuber. Instead of admitting that you were dumb as a kid, that you, your friends, your parents, and educators didn't do a good enough job at informing you, instead of admitting that the community you were in potentially created that kind of situation, and instead of acknowledging like you were uneducated, you were dumb, you blame the media you consumed, okay? You blame Transformers, right? It's like in the 90s when people, you know, blamed depression on Marilyn Manson, on Nirvana, on stuff like that. It's the same exact thing, but it's from the opposite side of the political spectrum. Back then it was the religious right. Now it's the, you know, I'd say probably anti-religious left, creating this moral panic. It's as if there's no agency, and brainwashing is real. I find it pretty pathetic. Y'all, I'm actually so hyped. This is hilarious. This woman indoctrinated me as a minor into being an anti-SJW. I watched her content as a child and became further bigoted than I already was from my environment. She probably had this effect on thousands of children. So she's talking about Shoe on Head here, who I guess blocked her. Now, watching Shoe on Head's content, most of it is pretty tame, to be honest. Like, I'm surprised this is even being brought up as like one of the YouTubers that made you this way. But once again, there's no personal responsibility that this person seems to accept. Instead, it's Shoe on Head's job to make sure that kids that watch her don't take her views and run with them and wildly misinterpret them, okay? It's all her responsibility. Like, this bitch set me back by years. I was a budding feminist, then found her content and started spewing right-wing shit, watching right-wing channels in addition to hers. She functioned as a part of the alt-right pipeline. There's no way that someone who is truly a real budding feminist would watch Shoe on Head of all people and almost immediately become the most debased chud of all time. That doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make sense. The reality is that your beliefs were just not that strong to begin with. They were flimsy. They were paper thin. You didn't know why you thought what you thought. You basically believed it because the media, you know, around you believed it. And so as soon as something else came along, as soon as you saw a differing opinion that was slightly more fleshed out from the other side, you jumped at the opportunity to cling onto that as your new identity. This tweet in and of itself is actually an admittance that celebrating the right conclusion is more important than the process to reach that point. I personally would rather have someone have the worst opinion of all time if they can actually explain themselves, because that proves that they could come to the right conclusion eventually and they wouldn't be so easily swayed to go back to that negative opinion, right? I would rather have someone who's reasonably intelligent have the wrong opinion and me be able to have a conversation with them and try to convince them of the opposite side than someone who is unwilling to even debate, to even have conversations conversation and doesn't know why they think what they think. And this person is a perfect example of that. It's super funny to use the term indoctrinated as well, because if you search white on her account, she's obsessed with like shitting on white people and pointing out white people now. You just flip sides. You didn't become educated on anything. You saw one piece of media. You became an anti-SJW who hated feminists. Back then, you were probably constantly quote tweeting feminists. Now you saw one bread tuber and you became woke or whatever, and you're constantly calling out white queers. You're racist or whatever. You're just kind of fucking dumb. You don't know why you think what you think. You just believe what other people tell you. That's not their fault. That's your fault for being low IQ. But unfortunately, the floodgates have been opened, and every mentally ill Zoomer feels like now they have a pass to blame their shitty behavior on random YouTubers they watched years ago. No, actually, everyone has a responsibility to themselves to find the truth, to come to the right conclusion, to act responsibly. And the idea that it's Shoe on Head's fault is crazy. Obviously, kids have slightly less agency than adults. I mean, there's a reason. I just mentioned this recently. There's a reason why we ascribe less, culpability to children, like in criminal trials, because we recognize that kids have less developed brains. They're less capable of that kind of stuff. And okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to acknowledge, like, when I was a kid, I had this dumb take, okay? But to blame it on people who didn't tell you to have that take and, like, you just took it and ran with it is silly. You have to just acknowledge, like, when you were a kid, you were dumb. That's your fault. That's what happens when you're a kid. That's part of growing up. It's not Shoe on Head's fault. It's not Idubbbz' fault. Somehow everyone today is a helpless victim with no bearing on their own thoughts. And YouTubers who made innocent videos, Idubbbz who made videos making fun of YouTubers, Shoe on Head who made fun of cringe feminists, well, now they are racism incarnate. Did they support racism at the time? Well, no. Did they tell their audience to be bigoted? Well, no. But kids who saw their videos thought something in their head that the creators themselves did not say. They came to a new conclusion and acted of their own volition. Clearly, this is Filthy Frank's fault. In case this video hasn't been explicit enough already, because clearly my audience and everyone's is full of people with no thoughts of their own, right? I'm not responsible for you. I'm not your fucking friend. I don't fucking know you. I'm a guy who makes videos about current events and lolcows, and you watch them. I appreciate that you watch them, and you probably appreciate that I make them if you do watch them, and that's it. That's as far as we know each other, to be honest. Sorry if that's a rude awakening, but that's just how it is. Anyway, thanks for the support on videos. Leave a like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it. Follow my Instagram, Tom But Dark, for my most epic selfies ever. Goodbye.
Swag like Idubbbz.
So we have the Idubbbz gaslighting document here. This was our prep document. Can you scroll down? A song with the hook, swag like Idubbbz.